Continues.
Congressman Steve Cohen at our table this morning to talk about the Mueller investigation. Congressman, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
I want to begin with our guest yesterday, Alabama Republican Congressman Mo Brooks. He was on the Washington Journal, and this is what he had to say about the Mueller investigation.
I'm sure that if you have a job, that your employer expects you to get certain work done within a certain period of time, or else that employer is going to find someone who can do that work within that time limitation. That's what I want out of special prosecutors. I don't want these things going on for years and years and years. When you're talking in the criminal setting now, 2 years ought to be plenty of time to conduct a proper criminal investigation and come up with a proper conclusion. And if warrants for arrest or indictments are appropriate, then fine. Get those arrest warrants, get those indictments, and then begin the in-court prosecution. But to have an investigation that is ongoing for now 2 years, come July 5th, maybe earlier than that, July 5th of 2016, but certainly no later than that, that's plenty of time for a prosecutor to do his job. And let me emphasize one final point. I'm calling for the end of the Mueller Special Counsel investigative phase on the 2-year anniversary of the FBI's involvement. But if there is other criminal activity that is uncovered, fine, prosecute that in the normal course within the Justice Department, in the normal course using FBI agents. I'm not saying look the other way. I'm saying let's do the normal course. In this particular instance, Mueller was appointed special counsel. The FBI investigated this for 2 primary reasons. 1, alleged Russian interference, and 2, alleged Trump collusion with the Russians with respect to that interference. Those are 2 relatively simple things in a court of law to either prove or disprove. And I would hope that if you're going to confine yourself to those 2 items, that an investigator worth his salt can do the investigation within a 2-year period of time and reach a proper conclusion.
Congressman, your reaction there to Congressman Mo Brooks. The president has called for it to wind down. We've heard Senator Thune said it should also start to wind down.
The Republicans are all in the same song sheet. They want the investigation to end because they don't want the investigation to find out any more than has already been found out. We don't know all what Mueller has found out, but we know he's indicted quite a few people, that he's gotten several guilty pleas. He's gotten 1 person already been sentenced. We know there's more in the works. He's going to indict the folks the Russians who are responsible for hacking the DNC and Mr. Podesta and their emails. That's going to happen. He's probably winding up his investigation, but he needs to talk to the president. He needs to talk probably to the president's son-in-law, the disposable one. He probably needs to talk to his daughter, the princess, and maybe a few others, and he'll have it winded up. But you can't just say 1 year, 2 years, because you don't know how broad this is. And no investigation, you just can't put a time limit on it. You just said, oh, we haven't found Osama bin Laden in 3 years, so let's quit. Sometimes it's difficult to get everything in, get all the pieces together. Robert Mueller is one of the greatest people in our country, in our country's history. He's a man who has been a Justice Department prosecutor, dedicating himself to public service, the 2nd longest serving FBI director, second only to J. Edgar Hoover, appointed by Republican George W. Bush and reappointed by Barack Obama. What a good housekeeping seal of approval to have a Republican and the succeeding Democrat trust you so much they put you in charge of the FBI. And I think it was about 10 years. And then he served us in Vietnam, got a Bronze Star, was injured, had a Purple Heart, had other awards, was hailed by his men as a leader of men in Vietnam, risking his life to save others. This is a heroic man. He does his job. Everybody says he is a professional. He goes by the book. He's thorough, and he'll get the job done. America and Mo Brooks and Rudy Giuliani and all the other Republicans ought to just sit back and say, Robert Mueller, a Republican, is a fine man. We trust him. Complete your investigation. Let the American public know what went on, and if there was collusion with Russia, let us know.
Let's go back before Robert Mueller was tapped to become the special counsel. When the FBI began their investigation, the New York Times yesterday had more details on this. It was in the summer of 2016. And agents from the FBI were sent to London to interview the Australian ambassador on August 2nd, 2016, 2 days after an investigation was opened looking into possible ties between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Do you have any concerns as a member of the Judiciary Department that the FBI opened this type of investigation into a presidential campaign?
None whatsoever. The fact is, they had information through Papadopoulos that he had talked to this Australian diplomat, and it was about the Russians interfering in our elections. If there is information, probable cause, that the Russians, or any foreign power, but particularly the Russians, are trying to interfere with our elections, it is the job of the FBI. You don't turn your back on that information because it's a president. You don't do it. You don't let the crime be committed. And the fact that they did it says that all this hooey that they had about 6 months ago, saying that the warrants that they went to the FISA court, that they didn't have enough information, that it all depended on the Steele dossier, and the Steele dossier was the X, Y, and Z. This shows what was said then. This started not because of the Steele dossier, but because of Papadopoulos' statements that got the FBI involved in trying to find out what was going on. This wasn't the Steele dossier. It was the Papadopoulos statements that got the warrants for the FISA court started. That's why they went to Australia, to talk to the Australian diplomat. And that's all very understandable and commendable. What happened was an aberration, and really an aberration in democracy. And what we're experiencing right now in America is a real aberration.
Do you know if there was an informant put inside the Trump campaign, and would that be appropriate?
I don't know if there was, but it would be appropriate. If there is information that this campaign is colluding with the Russians, and they had probable cause, which they would have had, then they have a duty to try to find out if there is, in fact, discussions going on between the campaign and the Russians. They had a duty to do that, to try to find out. It's no other different than any other criminal investigation.
Mr. Giuliani has also said that in conversations with Mueller's team, that the scope of questioning would be narrow, and that Mr. Mueller's team has told the White House that the president would not be indicted.
I can't really comment on what Giuliani says because he's not a credible person. He said so many different things about, he did pay him, he didn't pay him, he didn't know that Stormy Daniels got paid, he paid him with his own funds, he paid him $10,000 a month. His story changed from day to day, so I can't comment on Giuliani.
What if that were to be true? What's the next move then? What do you think?
What, that
if Mr. Mueller would not indict a sitting president because of the constitutional
he still could
issues.
be an unindicted co-conspirator. He could also information. Complete report would go to the Congress to determine whether or not there have been impeachable offenses, and that would go to the House Judiciary Committee. Hopefully we would do some work, which we've done nothing. The House Judiciary Committee, which is the most relevant committee to this entire investigation, because it's the people's house seeing these issues, has done nothing. We have been nothing but complicit with the president. The president and the Republican Party want this to go away because they know within all those balls is information that will be damaging. It's just not credible to believe that Donald Trump Jr. didn't know if his father had a blocked cell phone, which he said, I didn't know if his phone was a blocked number. He probably called his father 3 times a day. Every time he had to go to the restroom, he'd probably have to call his dad. Blocked number. Oh my God, what do I do?
And if Mr. Mueller were to recommend impeachment proceedings, it would go where first?
Go to the House Judiciary Committee.
And what would the committee's role be?
The committee's role would be to decide whether or not there's probable cause and information, substantial, have hearings to see if there's grounds for impeachment. And impeachment takes a majority in the House, the committee, and then the House floor, and then it would go to the Senate for a trial on impeachment grounds, and that would take 2/3.
Steve Cohen, a member of that Judiciary Committee, our guest here this morning. Let's go to George, who's in Hudson, Florida, a Republican. Hi, George.
Good morning. How are you, Greta?
Doing well.
It's always nice talking to you. I think you're the best moderator on the Washington Journal.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Cohen, Congressman Cohen, I don't know how you got that position with some of your thoughts.
Great start.
How can you call Rudy Giuliani dishonest?
I didn't say he was dishonest. I said he was not credible.
Of New York City. Excuse me. I'm talking. I'll let you talk after I'm done. I've heard you go through these filibusters with other people in different places. But I'm going to tell you something. You still there? Back in October in 2016, you wanted to get rid of Comey, and you said that he was terrible. He should not have brought charges against Hillary. He shouldn't have been making these reports. And then a year later, you're praising him for all the good that he's done for the government. You're so disingenuous. I can't understand why people have you on the show and listen to some of your nonsense.
Well, George, let's have the congressman respond to that. You're changing opinion?
No,
Was it a changing
let me go,
opinion?
Greta. First of all, I didn't talk about Comey. I talked about Mueller. So the man in Florida needs to get his facts straight. They're two different people.
I think he was referring to previous comments by you about Comey, about the former FBI director.
No, he was referring to previous comments about Comey when I said that he shouldn't have got involved 10 days before the election with the Clinton matter. And he was correct that I thought Comey was wrong. It violated Justice Department policy. And I think it influenced the election and influenced the result. But I did not talk about Comey today. And I think that's what he was saying, that I was praising him and saying all these wonderful things he'd done. I had not said that. That's number one. Number two, I didn't say Giuliani was dishonest. I said he wasn't credible. There's a difference.
And not credible because?
He's made so many statements that he has changed himself, and after he's made statements, he said, well, I'm learning more and more about the about this issue. I'm learning more and more about this. And all he does is he goes on and he just attacks people. I saw him this morning with Chris Cuomo. I was embarrassed. I felt like I was watching, a prize fighter at the fight that he shouldn't have had at the end of his career when he was 41 years old and he was fighting in somewhere in New Jersey.
What's the difference between Mr. Giuliani going on TV and your comments that you made about Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump?
Well, Jared Kushner, Giuliani's the one that said he was disposable. He said, guys, they're disposable. And he said Ivanka shouldn't have to testify. She's the daughter of the president, like she's the princess. She's as much possibly a witness in this case. She was apparently in some of these meetings, and she's an advisor to the president. There's no reason she shouldn't have to be a witness because she's a daughter, and the idea that daughters don't have to testify but men are disposable, what a sexist line that is.
We'll go on to Linda, who's in Lamar, South Carolina, Democrat. Hi, Linda.
Good morning. Thank you for C-SPAN. I watch you every morning. I think that our guest, Mr. Cohen, is right in the different things he says. I don't understand how people can say the president shouldn't have to testify when he is not above the law. He keeps saying he wants to go to Mueller and talk, so why doesn't he? But he'll back himself into a corner because he gets caught up in his own lies. He just cannot tell the truth every day. I think Giuliani is a joke because I think he goes up there and just rambles, and then the president even has to come out and say, no, that wasn't right. They can't get on the right page because they don't want to tell the truth. And I think people should wake up and realize how damaged our country is.
Okay, Linda, we'll have the congressman jump in.
Well, I can't argue with anything Linda says. She's exactly right. And basically, Secretary Tillerson said the same thing to the VMI graduates. When you start to question the truth, and the truth is not important, and you make up your reality and you make up your facts, then you're really damaging democracy. Putin wants America to fail. And two of the major places he wants America to fail is he wants us to question the judiciary as being a fair arbiter of conflicts and the law, and he wants the press to be questioned as a fair and arbiter, or not arbiter, but dispenser of the news and reporter of the news. That's something America's been known for. When I've traveled overseas, something people say constantly is what I hear about America is the rule of law. People want to have a fair justice system. Putin doesn't have one in Russia. Ours makes his look like it is, which is a joke and bad. And so and the president has attacked judges. He's attacked the judiciary, and he's attacked the press. He's attacked the truth. And Secretary Tillerson has said it, and others have said it, and everybody should be saying it because that's what an authoritarian does. Right now, we have an authoritarian in the White House. We do not have somebody who puts America first. You see the Cutter government coming in to bail out Kushner's building at 666 Fifth Avenue. You see the business that came in there is predominantly backed by gutter government. financing. We saw what happened in Indonesia. The Chinese came in, and all of a sudden, and maybe a coincidence, I don't think so, and they sponsor and fund for $500 million for an investment where the Trump people are part of this Indonesian resort. And all of a sudden, things change on GTE and our business with China. America should come first. Put America first, not Trump.
The former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's remarks to the Virginia Military Institute can be found on our website, cspan.org, in case you're interested in listening to the former Secretary of State in his own words. As the Congressman just said, he talked about truthfulness and how Americans should demand it from our leaders. Let's go to Gary in Memphis, Tennessee, independent.
Go Tigers.
Hi.
Hey, Gary.
Hi, yes. As a retired Army veteran living in Congressman Cohen's district, I'd like to just compliment him on his courage to stand up for the founding principles of our country in this whole matter. I would like also to encourage him to continue to protect Mueller. I know that he has done that in the past, and it's being stonewalled by Republicans, of course, and just encourage him to continue to support that effort. And also would like to thank him for voting no on the recent Veterans Bill, the VA mission bill, which will make a wreck of the VA system.
Okay.
So,
Congressman?
Well, Gary, first, thank you for your service, and thank you for your support. It's good to hear from somebody back home. The VA bill that was up, I think, is a road to privatizing the VA, closing certain VA hospitals. The VA system is good. It's big. There are problems. There have been improvements. In Memphis, I think we've got a good administrator and director, and he's making improvements. I spoke to him just this past week, and a lot of veterans really like their service, and for a lot of problems, especially orthopedics, PTSD, particularly unique injuries that veterans experience, the VA is the best place you can go. And the idea of privatizing is a mistake, and that's why I voted against that. As far as your other remarks, I will continue to try to see that the truth comes out. Bob Mueller testified before the Judiciary Committee when he was FBI director, and I was terribly impressed with him then and have been. I don't think there's a man that's got more credibility and integrity in the whole government sphere that I've ever met. He just needs to do his investigation, and as long as it takes to get the information out, who does it harm to get information? How does it harm us to find out what he determines and can reel in from witnesses, and sometimes that's difficult when it pertains to the law. And he's got indictments. You look at everybody around Trump. Manafort was his campaign manager working without pay. And when you work without pay and you've got these millions of dollars of houses and real estate and deals with rain, and he goes into the Republican convention, and Manafort gets taken out of the Republican platform that they all lied about how it happened and what happened, and they made all these stories, takes out the part that says we should give Ukraine government offensive military weapons, and they take that out of the Republican platform. Why did they do that? Because the Russians who are fighting the Ukrainians didn't want them to get those weapons. And then Manafort has got deals with the former Ukraine leader who was put out with the revolution. He's been making money with him. He's making major money. Why would you work for free? Just like a lot of these people, the salaries are chump change compared to what they can make on the market. It's astonishing what these oligarchs have and what they put away, and Manafort was getting it. And you see Flynn pled guilty. I mean, why would Flynn plead guilty if something didn't happen? Manafort hadn't pled, but Flynn pled, others have pled. Basically, all the people around the president in the campaign and around there, so many of them have pled guilty or have been indicted, which means a independent grand jury has found probable cause that they violated the laws of the United States of America. That says, let's get all the facts out there and see what happened.
Congressman, the House is going to gavel in this morning early for legislative session at the top of the hour, and the question that's hanging out there is, will there be a vote on the farm bill? Because there are factions within the Republican Party that want to force a vote on immigration. Conservatives want a conservative bill, and some moderate Republicans are pushing for a discharge petition that some Democrats support. Action Childhood Arrivals Program participants known as DACA. I just want to show you what Homeland Security Secretary Nielsen had to say as she made her way into the White House this morning. She was asked by reporters in the driveway about this. Let's listen.
Could you tell us what's your relationship with the president and if those reports about a resignation letter are in fact true?
We have a very strong relationship. I think what is true is we're both really frustrated. We need Congress to act. We at DHS are committed to doing everything we can within the law, but the law is broken. And the American people are frustrated, and so are we.
Was the president in any way personally frustrated with your leadership?
Not that I believe so, no. I think he's just frustrated with the process, right? I mean, here's a president who has said continually we must protect American communities. And the reality is the law prevents him from doing so completely. So I would be...
In what way? Can you give us specific?
Sure. So there's lots of loopholes. You know, the loopholes that require us to do catch and release, the loopholes that require us to release criminal aliens back into communities, the loopholes that do not allow us to keep gang members out of this country. So, you know, it goes on and on and on. But he's made very clear to Congress this is the changes that we need to make to the law to protect our communities, and we just haven't been able to get Congress to act.
What's the problem?
Yeah. I think it's, you know, it's a timing issue, perhaps, meaning that they're just never in session, right? I mean, they take lots of recesses. They have other things to do. So we've encouraged them, stay in session, get your job done.
Congressman?
I don't know Ms. Nielsen very well. I think that there are changes that need to be made in the immigration law, but that we don't need a wall. That's just a campaign promise he wants to keep, unlike the campaign promise of seeing to that we negotiate for better drug prices. That's a campaign promise that's all been forgotten, but he's all up on this wall. And I think drug prices for seniors is what's important, and drug prices for everybody. The donut hole needs to be closed, and people need to see that they can afford drugs just to maintain their health. And the way to do that is to have the power of the federal government through its Medicaid and Medicare folks negotiate for better prices on behalf of the American public. That's something Trump ran on and something he has forgotten. It's a promise made and a promise broken.
Another issue to get your reaction on is in the New York Times, there's a plan by the DNC to make superdelegates a lot less super. One plan is to reduce the number of superdelegates from 700 to about 280. Some officials said they preferred a proposal in which only elected government officials and not party leaders retain their superdelegate status. Were you ever a superdelegate? What do you make of this?
As an elected congressman, I've been a superdelegate. Whatever the DNC does is fine with me. I think that a congressman should be part of the delegation and should vote. There are a lot of other folks that maybe don't need to be superdelegates, and the superdelegates do some advice that's important as far as electability. The whole thing with Hillary Clinton, she won without the superdelegates. She had, I think, I don't know what, 80% of the superdelegates, maybe 90, but she won the popular vote too and had most of the delegates. So that's kind of a different situation, but I understand people want democracy, and I certainly do too, and have less superdelegates is fine with me.
Have you signed on, I'm going to go back to immigration, have you signed on to this discharge petition?
I plan to today. The line was too long yesterday, and I didn't have a chance.
The line, there was a line to sign on.
Well, there are still 195 Democrats, and we had held off at the request of the other parties. They got 22 Republicans. I think they need 25 to go with all the Democrats, and everybody was lined up. I think the line was at least 30 people deep.
Of lawmakers trying to sign this discharge
Democrats.
Democrats trying to sign the discharge petition.
So all the Democrats probably will sign on by the end of the day.
Yeah, we heard from the minority leader yesterday, Nancy Pelosi, saying 99% of Democrats are on board with this discharge petition. What kind of guidance are you getting from the leadership?
Well, as far as, they encourage us to sign on, and I would sign on. I had a discharge petition to protect Mueller, and I got all Democrats. I think we had 178 to have the Mueller protection bill come to the floor, which I think should come to the floor to give him due process in case he's fired, and a hearing before a 3-judge federal panel to make sure if he's fired for cause. You just have to think about it, Greta. This man is under character assassination. This man, he should be given a medal at the end of this. They should consider putting him on Mount Rushmore. I mean, this is a great man.
Well, Congressman Steve Cohen, Democrat of Tennessee, Judiciary Committee member, we thank you for your time this morning.
You're
Appreciate
welcome,
it.
Greta. Nice to be with you.
And we turn